Hello everyone, this is Jimmy Cultist back again with another exploration game video. I suppose this is a subject that exists broadly even outside of exploration games, but we're covering how to create camera transitions for cutscenes and whatnot. So people have been asking about this, so I'm going to cover it real quick. Actually, let's not do that. Let's delete this timeline. And instead, let's put out a microchip. I tend to make them really small. That's my personal preference. You could also create a piece of material if you wanted to. I guess we could just copy out one of these babies. Turn on the power. And we'll just relabel it to cut scene. Make it a darker blue, perhaps, to make it stand out more. And for cutscenes, the easiest way to create them is to simply stamp out a timeline. You can have it set to sustain, or you can have it set to play once. Either one works. It's generally a good idea, though, if you're going to have a cutscene, triggered by something. If it's set to sustain, you need a constant amount of energy pouring into it to make it keep going. However, if it's set to play once, you only have to trigger it once. And that way you wouldn't need to have something giving it constant power, so just keep that in mind. Our cutscene isn't going to be very involved. Now, first of all, I want to demonstrate how to create a camera rig. And basically what this amounts to is a little post for our camera to move on, an easy way to move it about with keyframes and such for cutscenes. Usually in cutscenes you don't want to allow people to see your imp, and you can sometimes disable the controller sensor input unless you want to have skippable cutscenes, which is something I might cover at some point, although I will say what we were doing with our dialogue earlier is a good example of how you can create skippable cutscenes, so if you're impatient, just go ahead and check out that video, because we kind of showed you how to do a skippable cutscene in that one, although it was for dialogue. But basically, this is one way you can create a camera rig. I don't really prefer this way. There are certain situations in which it's entirely necessary, but I just want to show you it because it's an option. It's a lot better to use an actual piece of material rather than moving the camera itself with a keyframe. It's a little less janky, I find. But here's one way you can create a camera transition. We're just going to make our camera pan around the pig. Now the downside to using these keyframes is, one, if they're not active, the camera will reset to its natural position, unless of course you set it to set it to keep changes. Although there's a new thing with keep changes where you have to put this one little deal here. I don't know why that is. You have to copy the frame out. And let's go ahead and see how it looks. It's a little janky, as you can see. It stops up at these, kind of slows itself down. And it's kind of weird for a camera to do that. Like, they don't usually stop in place. Usually it's a smooth motion all the way around. But there are certain situations in which it is actually a good idea to have a camera rig. Usually when something's in motion, it's a good idea because it's hard to keep your camera moving with a moving object. But there's probably ways to do it. Now, one other thing I want to demonstrate is a stationary camera rig. Like, if you've ever had an NPC that's walking, like you want to show a cutscene, We're just going to go ahead and name this Cam. And we're going to put it up here. Be sure to realign Z so that it's facing forward, and Y so that it's facing up. And we're going to put this little... Let's go ahead and delete these before we do this. We're going to put a teleporter on our camera rig. Don't match target orientation though. Just put cam, and it will automatically attract to this area. Now briefly, we're going to shut this off, and the reason why is because I want to quickly record an action. We've got a little bit of a problem here. Since he's set to force possession, when you're recording a puppet's movements with the record possession feature, you want to turn off forced possession, and you want to connect the circle button, not there, but here, which is depossession. And the reason why you want to do that is because the thing will not stop recording unless it gets a depossession signal. So we'll go ahead and delete that. We're going to move our pig over here. And then we're going to record its possession with R2. He's going to slowly walk forward. And we're going to press circle. Now let's go in here, set it to sustain, and be sure to keep changes. Don't set it to travel unless you want him to go off the path. This indicates how far he's traveling, by the way, if you want to know, you know, how that works out. Alright, now that that's done, I'll show you how you can create a cutscene now with a camera rig. If you want to have, like, you know, like a dolly shot, if anyone's familiar with those, where they have, like, the actors are moving and talking, and the camera is stationary and following their movements. That's what they call a dolly shot, I believe. I'm not a film expert, at least not that I know of. I may be one in fact, but not in knowledge. Anyway, let's create a good camera angle here. We've got to play our cutscene. That's a little bit close, although you could do that if you wanted some sort of, you know... If you wanted to go a little bit of a weird route, you could have an angle that close. But yeah, there's a nice stationary camera rig for a moving character. It doesn't bob up and down too much. Now, if he was moving a lot and running, it might bob up and down, but that would feel very natural, so... Yeah, you could go with that. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and do away with the camera rig, because I was just demonstrating some of the things you can do. But another way to do a similar effect, I could demonstrate it in several different ways, but it's basically stamp out a camera, set it to cut. We're going to go ahead and turn these on, although it's not always necessary to do so. By the way, if you want cinematic black bars, just press display bars. There's an alternative way if you don't like the aspect ratio of the little black bars. You can always use a wiper, set it to this, then set it to linear, then make it, you know, hard cut. And you may be saying, well, that's good, but that's on the side. How do I get it up top? Well, you just grab this little thing here, put it at the bottom. Oh, and take down the transition time. Unless, of course, you want the black bars to transition, in which case, you know, you're okay. But with this, you can basically create black bars both at the top and bottom of the screen. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that. Just be sure you get the placement right. That's the main thing. You have to kind of like fiddle around with this thing to make sure. It can be a little bit nuanced. But yeah, there's like synthetic black bars. And you can set them to be as wide or as small as you want, just in case you don't like the default black bars that are, you know, on the base camera. Anyway, we're gonna copy out this camera, stretch it, and set it to smooth. Now, what does this do? Here's the transition time. Basically, smooth is if you have a camera transition to one other camera, it automatically, you know, moves to the next camera. I'll show you what I mean. Say your base camera is here, looking at the pig. By the way, let's turn off invisibility. It'll smoothly transition to the second camera. All you need to do is weigh your transition time and maybe go through some trial and error, like if you want to create a panning shot or something. And be sure there's no impediments in the way, otherwise the camera will just pass straight through them, and that looks funky, so keep that in mind. But that's a lot smoother than using a rig in most situations. Like I said, passes through. You can also extend the camera's duration to make sure it's, you know, stable when it stops panning. Basically, when the transition time is done, the camera will just lock in place and, you know, do a still shot if it's still playing. But that's some handy information. Let's do one more of these just to kind of show you how it can work. We're going to put a camera in here. If you want to do like one of those cinematic sweeping shots. First thing that comes to mind is Crash Team Racing at beginning part where they're like showing you all the tracks in the intro. The music was really creepy in that. I didn't really remember it when I was a child, but recently I was rewatching that original cutscene, and the music is kind of ominous for those sweeping shots. I don't know why. But yeah, if you wanted to have a sweeping shot, this is how you do it. And we're going to have to set a camera further out. Now, basically, to avoid the problem we're running into here, where it cuts through the wall, we're going to need a little camera in between to make sure that we're properly aligned in the hallway. Like right here, I think. You'll get used to it. When you're fiddling around with these things, you get used to it. Let's move this back. Alright, let's see how this works. It also has to do with your transition time a little bit, because if you have a shorter transition time, it'll cut through frames a lot more. But there's a nice sweeping little shot. Hopefully you found this helpful. I feel like maybe this doesn't really require explanation, but cuts are perhaps the most, you know, basic form of camera work. Shot, reverse shot, that sort of thing. Like if you just want to show the pig, and maybe he's discussing his inner torment, I don't know. And then you want to show the level, like, where am I going to find the key or something. Cuts are really simple. Just cut, you know, easy. I noticed that there's like a bunch of other settings on the camera. I don't use these because I don't really know entirely, you know, they don't seem super useful. There's ease in, ease out, linear, crazy. These things exist, but I don't really find them as useful as these two basic types. There's also aperture, which allows you to, well, I'll show you what it allows you to do. Basically, aperture controls the focus distance. If you've ever used a real camera, you probably already know how to use this. You can also manually alter at which range the focus changes. So if you pull it closer, you know, the distance is lower, you're going to have more focus either closer or further away, depending on what you want. It's really good for creating that extra cinematic effect if you're interested. Let's kind of turn off this stuff so that we can see better. Gives you some idea of the focus distance. And you could play around with this sort of thing when you're setting up shots. But anyway, that's all I have to say on the subject of cameras. It's pretty useful, actually. Once you get the hang of this stuff, you can make some really nice looking things in Dreams. I imagine you can make some films, actually, if you were skilled with animation. I am so-so, so the product is so-so. But if you were more skilled than me, you could probably make something pretty stupendous. Anyway, that's all for now. Of course, we are going to give a little shout-out to our monthly subscribers on Coffee. There they go. Wonderful. I think it's only one person at this point, but let's just ignore that. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss another video. If you wish to support our earnest insanity, you can check the links in the description to donate or buy merch. Until next time, goodbye.